Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
This is like Lord of the Rings, Return of the King stuff. The Indiana Fever, oh, so desperate to get Caitlin Clark back. Last night was a great example of how much they miss her on this team, miss her leadership, miss her playmaking ability, miss her decision making ability. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all of your support. Shout out to the 19. Speaking of all of you, the 19, you're wondering what is on here. Well, this is your state of Gene. This is Gene Wilder. Do not confuse the state of Gene with Sydney Sweeney's genes. They are two very, very different things. I have put this out there after the last couple of games. Where are you? Let me know in the comments below your state of Gene after last night's game. You have 1 through 9. I'm leaving this here for a second. You can always roll it back and hit pause if you want to study it a little more closely. But look, man, first of all, the Fever, I'm getting sick of the stuff with Caitlin Clark's injury. I'm getting tired of the mystery. I'm getting tired of the stringing along, which we are clearly seeing in terms of her status for each game, and then rolling it back, and then, oh, well, she's not even practicing, and on and on. And it's really gotten to the point where it seems very clear that they're just trying to drag it along to keep Caitlin Clark fans engaged with these games, hoping that she's going to be back at any moment. Because if they come out and say, hey, Caitlin Clark's done for the season, we know we're terrible to watch, we're not entertaining at all, and you are going to tune out if we tell you Caitlin Clark is finished for the season. So we're just going to pretend that she could be back at any moment. So anyway, let me know your state of this. But last night was an absolute disaster for the Indiana Fever. If you are going to be a playoff team that is going to make any kind of run in any sport, as always, it's you have to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And then you need to, go 500 or a little above or whatever is closest to the teams that are above you. You have to steal some wins. You got to beat the teams right above you in order to get that winning record, to get up there high enough in order to get a good playoff seed and be able to compete in the playoffs. And a loss to the absolutely incomparably bad Dallas Wings, that is not how you get it done. That is not how you get it done. And they didn't even lose to Paige Beckers. I mean, Paige Beckers has the Asia Wilson whistle, or as I like to say now, Asia Wilson has the Paige Beckers whistle. But even so, there was no Arike on this team. And Paige really was pretty much shut down by Sophie Cunningham. Paige shot 6 for 19 and 0 for 4 from 3. And the point she did get was because she got the whistle, as we will see with a couple of them. Absolutely terrible, terrible calls against Sophie Cunningham, who may now that Caitlin Clark's out, Sophie Cunningham with honorable mention probably to Aaliyah Boston, who has consistently gotten a bad whistle. Sophie Cunningham may have the worst whistle in the WNBA, and that is the price she is paying for the things she has said in defense of Caitlin Clark, for the things she has done on the court in defense of Caitlin Clark. So let's dig into this a little bit. We've got the game here. And by the way, I think Natasha Howard is a good example of stat watching and the whole double thing. And yes, sometimes it's great, and but it doesn't necessarily mean it's helping you win. Now, look, she was a +8, so as she played 28 minutes. So I'm not completely trashing Natasha Howard, but if you look at just her stats, okay, she was 5 and 9, 12 points, 12 rebounds. And the plus minus, again, not the greatest stat in the world. A good example is Chloe Bibby. Chloe Bibby played 12 minutes. She was 4 or 5, folks, right? She's back 3 of 3 from 3, 11 points off the bench in 12 minutes. She was a -15. But it wasn't because of Chloe Bibby. When Chloe Bibby was in, she was one of the few players doing anything productive, but she was in the same time. She's not a great defender, right? Chloe Bibby isn't very quick, so she has to defend on the perimeter. That's a problem. She was in the same time Dantas was in, and Dantas just I feel like Dantas is playing hurt just in what I've been watching lately. And maybe that's at times why there are games where she plays very few minutes. I think maybe there's an injury they're monitoring that is not something that you can make worse. So maybe I should say she's hurt, not injured. And having Bibby and Dantas out there at the same time is just terrible coaching. But again, I just think Bibby is a great example here of why the plus minus in and of itself is not a great stat unless you understand the context. Same with Natasha Howard, because Natasha Howard made a bad decision on the final possession for the Indiana Fever, and I saw her get cooked, roasted, filleted, whatever you want words you want to use defensively numerous times in this game. Aaliyah Boston was look, she had a tough whistle and she was okay, but again, the Arike didn't play. Paige Beckers was pretty much shut down. That's not who they lost to. They lost to some perimeter. They lost to some bigs, some forwards and so forth. If we go up here, right? Check this out. Leroux, 20 points off the bench in 27 minutes, 7 of 14 from the field. It is absolutely crazy. Maddie, I always want to say Seacrest, like Ryan. Seacrest, 9 of 13, 22 points, 3 of 5 from 3. Look, right? Paige Beckers, 6 of 19, 0 of 4 from 3. She was solid, but she basically spent the game flopping. So, Lexi Hull, Lexi, you just got it going again with your shot last game, and Lexi refused to shoot this game. I don't get it. 25 minutes. Now she was plus 14, but again, context to a bit. But Lexi was very good defensively, but she refused to shoot. I don't get it. 0 for 3 from the field, only took 1 3-pointer. As you can see, Dantas 1 of 6, 0 of 5. Again, I think that she has been playing hurt. Odyssey Sims, I know I did a video praising her, but here's what it looked like to me. One, it can be very difficult coming in your first game. She's had what, a month, six, maybe 8 weeks off. It looked to me, unfortunately, like Odyssey Sims did not pick up a basketball after she was waived. That's what it looked like. It looked like she wasn't ready. Not that she's a bad player, but she did not come in ready to play, and that hurt. So and then Brianna Turner got 4 minutes. Michaela Timpson only got 5, which I don't understand at all. But again, you have these situations, and here's where I'll go back to Lexi Hull. 15 points in the first quarter, 13 points in the third quarter. Those were also the 2 quarters they gave up the most, 23 and 25. 28 points in 2 quarters. That would never happen with Christy Sides. Okay, it did early. That would never happen post Olympic break with Christy Sides. I'll just let you figure out when Lexi Hull was in the game. And here's one of the biggest issues. If this is it, is this the right one? Yeah, I think this is the right one. Let me get to the right spot here. Uh, is this where? Okay, so there comes the shot. Hopefully, I can show this to you. But here's where we have a big, big problem. We get the shot from Paige Beckers. Natasha Howard rebound. That's a big rebound. That's a big rebound. Kelsey Mitchell, as we know, one of the fastest, quickest players in the league, to her right. Now, the Wings already have 3 players back. We've got just under 12 seconds. It is a 1-point game. Lexi Hull out on the left, but Natasha Howard is no one else. But again, okay, now why did you not give it to Kelsey Mitchell as she's going full speed down the right side? Give her the ball, give her the ball. No, I'm going to pull up. I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop here. Okay, now here's where I'm going to kind of defend Stephanie White with the initial decision making. In that situation where you see Howard get that rebound and she's actually able to turn and go right away, not she gets the rebound, she's in a crowd, the team, Dallas gets back, and we're walking the ball up the court from under the other basket. We had an opportunity to get out in transition and possibly get an easy bucket. So I completely understand letting that go, not calling the timeout when Natasha Howard gets the rebound. Okay. Now we've got Natasha Howard doesn't give it to Kelsey Mitchell as Kelsey Mitchell streaks down the right sideline passing. Instead, she crosses half court. She stops. She picks up the basketball. It's timeout time right here. Now is the time you call the timeout. The transition is over. We're not getting the easy bucket. We don't have a point guard out there to run something. This is where you need Caitlin Clark in this situation. If you're not going to call timeout, that rebound happens, and Caitlin Clark gets the ball out of Natasha Howard's hands right away, and she's the one running up the court with the ball, and we are going to get a good look. But you don't have Caitlin Clark out there. The ball has been picked up. Now you call a timeout. You've got 8 seconds, 8.2 seconds left to run a good out of bounds play with also enough time that you take a shot with maybe 4 seconds left, give your team an opportunity to get an offensive rebound if you miss. And I know a lot of people say, well, then you give the other team time. Yeah, but again, you also give your team the time to crash the boards and get another look in case you miss. Here's the problem. I was thinking back and going through all these games. You know what? I have yet to see Stephanie White draw up a good out of bounds play that gets a shot when a shot is needed. We saw Christy Sides do it. Not often. It took a long part of the season, but we saw Christy Sides do it. We saw Christy Sides do it for Caitlin Clark. But we have yet to see Stephanie White do it. So again, back in my day when I was walking uphill 4 miles each way in the snow in my bare feet to get to and from school, players had to be smart enough to understand when to call their own timeouts. Now coaches can call it in all these sports, which is, I think, stupid. I don't think coaches should be allowed to call timeout. They can let their players know they want one, but they shouldn't be allowed to call it. But they can. So here's where the timeout should be called by Stephanie White. But no, okay, how about at least here? Call the timeout. Now you've got 7.2 seconds left. And here is where I get the issue with Kelsey Mitchell. We all saw this last year. Kelsey Mitchell, I've said this for, best shooting guard in the league. However, that is all she does. She is a shooting guard. Caitlin Clark elevates Kelsey Mitchell's play by giving her great shooting opportunities and minimize decision making for Kelsey Mitchell. Because unfortunately, without a Caitlin Clark out there, Kelsey Mitchell has a lot more likely to go into Kelsey Mitchell mode, which means heads down, put the ball on the ground, dribble around, and let's see what happens. And that's what we got. There's nothing. This is going. If you have not seen this, this is a warning. This will hurt your head. It will hurt your heart if you are a basketball fan. Dribble, dribble, dribble. Let me go back, dribble the other way. Let me literally dribble in a circle twice. And okay, I'm going to finally chuck up that shot. Now, Stephanie White, 1.7 seconds left, finally calls a timeout. This should not happen in seventh grade basketball from the coach or the players. And there is where I say I get tired of hearing how good Kelsey Mitchell is or that she's better than Caitlin Clark, blah, 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 woof, woof. There you saw Kelsey Mitchell going into Kelsey Mitchell mode. Kelsey Mitchell can do some amazing things. It's okay to acknowledge that she also has some negative traits, and Caitlin Clark on the court helps minimize those negative traits for Kelsey Mitchell and makes her a better player. When she doesn't have a Caitlin Clark out there or a player like that, you're going to get a lot of things like this happening. What does get frustrating, and I get it, and people can look at it, well, man, those calls for Paige Beckers or those calls against Sophie Cunningham, it was a 1-point game. Yeah, but again, it's the Dallas Wings. It never should have been a 1-point game. That doesn't mean that stuff like this should be allowed to happen. I think this is the one. Folks, they called a flagrant foul on this, a flagrant foul on Sophie Cunningham. This is a flop. She's also coming from the side, right? Like this isn't a closeout. This is just her coming and chasing the play. Yeah, okay. No. Paige Beckers also went to her right, and I want you to think about all the times Caitlin Clark did not get a landing space foul. One of them is we talked about, when they signed Bonner, one of the things people were like, well, wait a minute, didn't Caitlin Clark get into it with her in the playoffs? Yeah, that was when Bonner very dangerously should have been given a she, got into Caitlin Clark's landing space, should have been given a flagrant, didn't even get a foul called. And then Caitlin and Duana got into it after that, rightfully so from Caitlin Clark's perspective. And then we also had this one as well. This is called Paige Beckers shoves Sophie Cunningham, and she gets the call against Sophie. Look, pushes Sophie Cunningham's got both arms out and away. Paige Beckers pushes her away, and they call. And yeah, that's absolutely right. That is an offensive foul. By the way, Where is Stephanie White defending her players and calling that? That is absolutely, absolutely an offensive foul. Should have been called. But you know what? Paige has that whistle. I think I might have a few more. And we had, well, yeah, that was another one. But and that's how it went. And then here is a great play, I think, a great play from Sophie Cunningham. Just an example. Hopefully you can see this and I don't get this whole copyright stuff. But by the way, that's also really good help defense. And then Sophie gets it and she goes. Sophie made some big, big, big time buckets in this game as well. In fact, this might be one of them. This might be one of them. So I'm going to leave this. Yeah, that's fantastic, folks. I love that. Sophie Cunningham was the best addition to this team. It would have been better. No shade to Sydney Colson, and I know people love her. I'm just looking at it from a basketball perspective. Sydney, Howard, Bonner, Turner. Sophie Cunningham was by far the best pickup among those players. That's just another view of it. And then that was Kelsey. But yeah, so this was a game that showed us a lot of the problems that the Fever have and a lot of the things that have been hidden or not like purposely. I don't mean that in a nefarious way, but I've had this conversation with my players when I've had young players and coaching. And I remember a soccer team I had, and for first like 4 seasons, I think, they were really, really well, doing really well, always won more games than they lost. And it was always competitive. Like I always made sure we had them in a situation where it was competitive. If they were going to lose a lot of games, it was going to be close. If they were going to win a lot of games, they were going to be close because that is best for them. So we had the first time we ever had some real adversity where we moved up too fast, too far. And anyway, and we started getting blown out early in the season. We started like 0-5, but we had that conversation that you learn from mistakes. Mistakes are how you learn. And you only really recognize and know mistakes when you lose. When you win, you're not thinking about the mistakes you made. You're not thinking about the things you need to improve upon. And what I've always said to them is obstacles are nothing more than opportunities. But here is the issue that I have, and here's the problem. So on the one hand, I think this is a good loss for the individual. I mean, it's a terrible loss. You know what I'm saying, but it can be a good loss for the Fever if the players and the coach are open to recognizing and acknowledging the mistakes that were made and the things they need to do to be better so that losses like this don't happen and they can take a step forward. The problem is, at least from the coach standpoint, I am far, far from convinced that Stephanie White is capable of recognizing mistakes that she's made and growing from them. Again, 6 years at Vanderbilt, 6 of the worst seasons that they've ever had. Star players leaving in droves from that team because they could not play for Stephanie White. It seems very Cheryl Swoops like. And she is clearly not learning as a coach. That end of the game for me is as bad as it gets from a coaching perspective. I'm sorry, but I cannot find a legitimate excuse for that. I broke it down as clearly as I could, talked about how I understood the initial let transition go, but no way when you saw Natasha Howard stop across half court, there's no way you let Kelsey Mitchell dribble in circles until there are less than 2 seconds left to go in that game before you call timeout. It's absolutely utterly stupid, but I'm going to leave it there, except let me go here. There you go. 1 through 9, the state of Gene. Let me know how you're feeling. They can still look, most likely they're going to finish in that 4, 5, 6 spot. And then we'll see how the other teams do, and we'll see who they get first round. Second round is always going to be somewhat tough if they get there. And Caitlin Clark, she may not be back to the playoffs. So I think the seeding is really important. I think it's really important that they get to the second round if they can do it. And I think they can. I really do. But we got to recognize the mistakes from this game and fix them. But anyway, let me know your state of Gene in the comments below, and feel free to vent, rant, have the details. Me, Philly guy. I'm never going to say to you, oh, well, stop crashing out. Oh, stop complaining. Nah, man, be a fan. Let it out. Let it out. Little stress reliever. Smash the like button, subscribe to the channel. Go have the day you deserve. I will talk to you later.